Welcome to the 60 Plus podcast.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Joe. How are you today, Janet?
I'm doing really well. How you doing?
Well, aside from the tech issues that we had
Well,
in
we don't
getting this thing
we don't
recorded,
really have to talk
we
about
don't have
that.
to, but I'm
I
going
don't think
to.
our listeners really care the troubles that we have.
So, what's the topic today, Janet?
So, we are going to be talking about feeding the travel bug.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that when we reach 60, we think about the things that we want to do in our lives, and a lot of time that has to do with travel.
Okay. You like to travel?
I love to travel. And of course, during the pandemic, I had some really awesome trips planned and they never happened. And I haven't quite gotten back to where I was. So I'm moving towards that again. But we're going to be talking to somebody today who has gotten back to that place and traveling 60 plus on her own with friends, a multitude of ways, and going to very interesting places. So she's going to teach us how to feed the bug.
You want to introduce her?
Sure. So today with us, we have Nadine.
Hi, Nadine.
It's great to have you here. Yeah. So we wanted to start the conversation by maybe telling us the last place that you went.
Oh, the last place. Well, I just got back from 2 weeks in Iceland, which everybody says, 2 weeks? What did you do for 2 weeks? It was a lot of time on a bus and ate all kinds of different things that I've never eaten before. It was a group of about 15 people. It was a bus tour, an organized tour, which for me was very different. Because I've never gone on an organized tour before.
Okay. So, and you chose this so you could go on your own?
Not this time. A friend of mine had suggested, she had been on previous tours like this, and she said, "Would you like to go?" So I said yes. I usually jump at the first time, somebody says, "Do you want to go somewhere?" And I say yes.
Yeah, I'm a girl who can't say no to.
Yeah. So, but in the past, most of my trips have been done organized by myself. I go places that I feel comfortable going,
Right.
and kind of make up a little bucket list of places that I want to travel to, plan them myself, either find friends or family that feel like going along with me.
Right.
Sort of like a field of dreams. I say, if I plan it, they will come.
Yep.
So I am a planner and I like to be organized. So I do it myself usually.
And do you ever go on these trips by yourself?
Yes, either in totality or in part. Last year, when I started, I started this plan in 2022, right after what I thought COVID was, more or less over. And I said, I'm done, because I had been traveling so much before and I hadn't traveled for 3 years. So I made myself a promise that I would travel once a month.
Oh, wow.
Every month. I've done 2022. I'm halfway through 23 and planning 24. But they're not big trips. And some of them I do go by myself. I just came back from Bruges, Belgium. Where I was,
nice.
I did part of it with a family member, and we did Normandy. And then from that point on, I went on to Bruges by myself. So I spent 4 days. But I do pick places where I find, for me, are comforting, are small. I pick boutique hotels.
Okay.
Because I find more comfort there, especially if I'm traveling alone. So last year, I did go to Sorrento and stayed there for about 4 or 5 days in Italy by myself. But, I plan, I go on tours. I set up for cooking classes.
Okay.
And do things that obviously bring in other people. So I don't
Right.
feel like I'm alone.
Right.
And I feel comfortable doing that.
And I guess you probably make friends too, right? When you're on your own, you're sort of open to talking to people, meeting people. Do you ever end up like going out to dinner with somebody that you meet on the tours, or?
Sometimes, yes, but I'm not a big nightlife person. So usually by the time a day ends of touring, I'm like exhausted. And usually get a recommendation for a restaurant or something. And I have gone out to lunches with some people, which
Mm-hmm.
is nice. And when you're traveling alone too, even if you go off on a group tour, some people are very, very sweet and invite you
Right.
because they see you, that you know you're alone. So they're very, very welcoming that way. And that actually happened when I was in Iceland with my friend. There was a woman from Kansas that was traveling by herself. And so I was very conscious of inviting her everywhere we went.
So you mentioned that boutique hotels, you feel more comfortable there when you're traveling alone. Like, what are the things that you look for to try to? I mean, if I'm thinking about myself, I haven't done a lot of traveling by myself. I'm a little bit nervous about it. What should I be thinking about looking for that might calm some of those nerves and like, hey, go for it. You can do this.
Sometimes I would just look for smaller, like 20 rooms or less, just a personal feel in the location close to the city, like close to downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to travel and get on trains to go into a city.
Right.
So I just kind of do some research, online research, and
Mm-hmm.
try to find a comfort level and contact the hotel, write to them
Right.
when I'm picking cities to go to or towns, I guess. It's also, I do like check online for how safe it is if you're traveling alone,
Right.
because that's really important too. Just to understand what's going on in that community at that time. So,
Right. So, what sources do you use? Are there any particular ones about solo traveling? Because I know solo traveling is definitely on the increase
mm-hmm,
across all age groups,
mm-hmm,
actually, younger too.
mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's a resource for people who want to start solo traveling and how do you find out where to go, where the best places are for them?
I don't know that I can honestly pinpoint a specific website that I look. I Google where I want to go and just keep reading articles. I like to read not necessarily advertising articles because I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily believe them all.
Right.
So I do tend to read a lot of blog posts and things of people who've been in areas that I'm interested in.
Okay.
So I think I tend to, not that blog posts are probably always
Mm-hmm.
the most accurate and truthful, and you're getting one person's opinion,
Right.
but still you read enough of it and then develop a feeling about
Right.
a place. And
Yeah.
I guess that's it. And reputation of a property.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've caught a few articles in like Travel and Leisure, that will
Mm-hmm.
do like roundup articles, single women,
Mm-hmm.
here are places to go. Certainly they have that for bridal parties.
Yeah, they do. They
A little
do.
bit out of our age group.
Probably trying to get rid of those people. When I'm planning a place or a trip, I look at where, even if it's in the States, it's not always overseas, but I look at places where friends of mine live and I
Hmm.
haven't visited them in a long time or at all. So this year I went to Denver to visit a
Hmm.
friend. I went to Greenville, South Carolina to visit
Hmm.
a girl I went to grammar school with
Wow.
and hadn't seen in 10 years. And so, it doesn't always have to be main hotel. You kind of
Right.
reach out and start kind of reconnecting to
Yeah.
people that you've been friends with for years, but you haven't seen, and you kind of want to know what everybody's up to.
Right.
So I think that's been part of my reconnecting with this whole plan because I can't afford to go to Europe every month. So I just find different places that I want to go and
Yeah.
enjoy it with
I
people
love that
like.
goal that you set for yourself. And there's no like time you have, like, I have to be away 5 days every
No.
month. It's just, I have to go on a trip,
Yep.
either by myself or with a friend
Correct.
once a month. I think that's great.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be 2 days in my mind. It can be going to the Cape with my family. One September last year, I booked a trip down to Martha's Vineyard and then decided, okay, who do I want to go with me? And,
Right.
do I want somebody to go with me or do I want to go by myself?
Yeah.
And I was ready to go either way.
Right.
And then I invited a friend. She came with me. And then we reunited with people that we went to high school with when we were there. So there's,
Fun.
you try to find community where in some
Mm-hmm.
cases that it's enjoyable for other reasons, not just travel.
Mm-hmm. So which do you prefer? Do you like to travel by yourself or with a group, let's say?
I don't know where I am with this the group was 15 people to Iceland. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that if I had done that on my own, I would have gone for 2 weeks,
Right.
or I would have learned as much. But all of the people that I met on the trip, I mean, they were in a position where they just wanted everybody to say, this is where you're going. And maybe they didn't like to plan all the details. So I totally understand that.
Right.
I just found it was strange for me to felt like I was following the Pied Piper everywhere we went, because
Right.
you kind of have to kind of keep pace, and it was a slower pace than I was used to.
Right.
So I don't know, but I do understand the benefit of going. If you're ever afraid to go by yourself or concerned about going somewhere by yourself, it is a great way to do that kind of traveling
Yeah.
and not have to plan anything.
It's like the cruise ship, right? You just have to get on the
Yeah.
ship and I don't have to worry about anything else for the
Right.
next, whatever, 5
Right.
days, 7
Right.
days. So, I think you said you like to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably a critical factor between, do I choose a trip where somebody else lays it out for me,
Right.
or you get a joy out of that planning process,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, like getting excited about it. And,
Yeah, my kids have always called their childhood organized fun, because no matter what we did, or there was an itinerary. So we have itineraries for the holiday season and every time we go on vacation. So yeah, so obviously I
do you make
probably
them wake up at a certain time?
nope, no.
Maybe you should be a tour guide and do the planning for everybody.
Maybe. I'll tell you one thing. I said I had a situation where my nephew did some of the planning. We did part of a trip I did with him recently. We went to Normandy, and we also then, I went on by myself to Belgium. And he had planned all of the VRBOs that we were staying at. And we got to the second one, and he said, "Oh, I didn't tell you. We only got one bedroom with, it's like 2 beds or something. I don't know. There weren't enough beds. Let's put it that way." So I spent 2 nights on a couch. And at my age, I said, next time I'll book the VRBOs. But, I wouldn't miss a day of traveling with family and
Right,
friends.
right.
So,
Yeah.
it was still fun.
I'm fascinated by the traveling alone thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're home, do you do things alone as well? Or is it just the traveling that you kind of tend to do alone?
No, I mean, I like group activities, pickleball. I'm trying to be a little bit more, join different groups so that I have things to do. I play golf. So I'm doing things with other people.
But you're doing those
Not
on
a
your own.
knitter, let's put it that way. I don't knit or embroider like many of my friends.
Right, because you recently retired, right? Or sort of semi-retired?
I'm still a little reluctant to use that term.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but yes. In May, I stopped working full time, and so I started trying to find all these activities that I could do and keep active, and volunteer to drive people to medical appointments and doing things like I kind of dove right into trying to find all these activities for myself. But the travel's always been there. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I backpacked through Europe for 5 weeks by myself. So
Wow,
I
okay.
think, that has always been, I mean, back then, it probably wasn't as scary as if you did it today. But it was, I've always had that bug, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like ripping off the Band-Aid, right? Like once you do that solo travel and you go, wow, this is kind of cool. There's a lot of great things about it. And, I just kind of navigate through this trip on my own, meeting people, doing what I want, when I want to do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful things about that solo traveling, I think.
Yes, it is. And like I said, I can see the benefits of both. I mean, one of the downsides, and I think you touched on it on an earlier podcast, is going out to eat any meal and you're by yourself. And so I'm always prepared with a book or something I'm reading about where I am. I always try to put myself in a position where I'm people watching so that I don't look like a sad person sitting there by themselves.
Or sitting at the bar is good.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's true. But you always have your phone. But then I looked around. I remember being in a restaurant in Bruges, and there were 3 singles sitting around tables, so it was me and 2 other people at single tables. You look around and you're not the only one.
Right.
And you get used to, you get used to it, but you just
You're
have
not
to have,
alone being alone.
no, you just need props,
Right.
have props ready. So,
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there
there's
anything special about travel now that you're 60 plus? You take advantage of discounts? Are there special? Are there special? Are there things that you do differently
special
now?
shoes that
Are there things that you do differently now than you would have when you were backpacking through Europe for 5 weeks?
I probably have more props. I do have a backpack. I still have done that. When I went to Italy last year, I packed, but now I have those cubes, those, what are the packing
Packing
cubes?
cubes.
Oh, those are great.
Greatest invention. And so much more, even more organized. And yes, probably more comfortable walking shoes. But no, I don't think about using a discount coupon.
Maybe you
on it.
should.
I know. I better start looking.
Build that into the plan.
I guess. Yeah. I haven't thought
Certain
of
airlines
that.
provide discounts for people of a certain age.
Really?
Do they really?
Some do, yes.
I'm going to check into that.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
read about it.
No, I didn't know that.
There's nothing special about being 60 plus. I mean, have you upgraded your accommodations?
Well, I told you I'll definitely be making any.
You're not sleeping on a couch.
I'm not
ever
sleeping
again.
on a couch at my age. Yes, that was a little. That was a little painful. And
Why did you get the couch and not
well,
your nephew?
because he's a lot taller than I am, and the couch wasn't very long. So I said, "Oh, you sleep here, and I'll sleep on the couch."
Oh, what a
Yeah.
nice aunt.
Maybe accommodations I would have taken when I was 20 have changed significantly to what I would want to stay in. But I'm very low maintenance, so it's not like I have to be at a 5-star hotel or anything like that. So I don't spend a fortune on hotels because you're out of
You're
your
not
there.
there.
You're not
Yeah.
there. I'd rather spend it on what I'm doing and the activities that I'm taking care of. But
So, do you have any tips for the older traveler? Any thoughts about somebody maybe who might be thinking about traveling on their own for the first time? Or
well, I think if you're thinking of traveling on your own for a first time, I think a tour is probably a really good idea. I talked to some of the people that were on this tour in Iceland, and they were very happy, even though they were alone, they enjoyed it. And I think that's a really good way of starting. Like if you're not used to traveling, start off with a 1-week tour somewhere that,
Right.
but just build a list of places that you want to go and see what's available. And they're in all different price ranges and stuff. So this was actually a group called OAT, which is Overseas Adventure Travel. And so everybody was older. I mean, they're older couples, singles, etc. And actually, my friend and I were probably the youngest. There were couples in their 80s, and they were pretty active.
Yeah.
And these people had been on 23 of these tours.
Wow.
So people obviously love the fact that they don't want to have to think about the details. So I don't know. I would say that maybe try that first.
Yeah, I also had somebody tell me about, going on these tours as an option for solo travel, but that you really should be careful about how active the group is. What are the destinations? What's the itinerary look like? What are you expected to do physically?
Yes.
Because to your point, you were saying like the pace was a little much slower than
Yes.
you used to. You can go on more active tours
That's true.
where there's hiking and things of that nature and more physical activities.
Right. And they usually have them categorized as easy, moderate, complex, or whatever the third category might be, highly active or something like that. And I'm going on a trip actually in October with my husband, and it does give.
Oh, it's nice of you to bring him along.
Finally, he gets to go.
He does get to go on this trip. And but we're doing some things separately. Like he's looking at the excursions one way, I'm looking at excursions another way, and we're going to, so that we get the best of both worlds,
Right. And then you get to have dinner together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they could sit separately at the bar with their.
This way she doesn't need all the props.
That's right. I have
maybe
a prop.
he is the prop.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's my prop.
How far out do you have your travel plan scheduled?
I have it finished through 2023, and I'm starting 2024.
Wow. So what kind of places are you looking at in 2024? Yeah.
Portugal, which I
Ooh,
had
nice.
planned. We had a trip planned with friends in Portugal and during COVID, and it was canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at going again. I resurrected, I don't know if that's the right word, a friendship with a person who I'd known for years. And we got on a phone call 2 weeks ago and started talking. She's from New York, and we started talking about traveling, and she's on her way somewhere else. And we said, I said, I need to start filling up 2024. So she's all for it. So we're
Oh,
going to
cool.
Portugal, or at least that's the plan. Going to Paris again, I think, and then Italy again. I love Italy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Italy's a beautiful country.
Yeah.
So you're a big planner.
Yes.
On the last episode of 60 Plus, Greg came in and talked about technology, and we busted the myth that people 60 plus can't use technology.
Oh,
What kind of technologies do you use in the planning? And then when if you're overseas or in someplace else in the U.S., what kind of technologies do you use to make your planning and your traveling go better?
obviously my phone and computers. I've done it for work and everything, so I'm familiar with a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, searching things obviously on my computer. When I get there, obviously I try not to take my big heavy computer, but I take a small iPad, like or a mini iPad, just because I find it a lot easier than trying to do things on your phone all the time
Right.
when you're traveling. And you kind of learn all the adapters you need for all the things. I'm pretty organized. I actually have a travel drawer.
Okay.
So I keep all of these like adapters and plugs and all these things that I need in one spot. And I use my phone.
You could use Chat GPT to have come up with an itinerary. I'm going to Portugal 5 days. What should I definitely see? Give me an off the beaten track itinerary. I wonder what it would come up with. I bet you it would be.
You kind of went to where I was going to go. What are your criteria on where you choose to go besides visiting friends? For me, food is top 5 thing, right? History, architecture, museums, geography. I too went to Iceland a couple of years ago, and the geography is amazing.
It is amazing.
I didn't find the
beautiful.
food so great.
Yeah, I know. I ate shark. I ate whale.
Okay.
Herring. Never had herring before.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people eat
Will you
that.
have it again?
That's a tradition.
No. Cod. Their cod and their Arctic char were delicious.
Oh,
so
yeah.
yes, that I will do. Keep cod I eat all the time.
How do you identify where you're going?
Well, places I've never been.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So-
but you're going back to Paris and you're going back
I
to
know,
Italy.
and places that I love. So I mix places that I've never been in, places that I love. And there's so many parts of Italy. I was just doing some research on Puglia of Italy that I've not been
Food's
to.
fantastic in Puglia.
I know, and I've never been there. And so, I mean, there's so much to see in one country
Right.
that it's not all about just going to the one, go to
check,
Rome.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, it looks like the type of part of the country that I'd feel comfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
So I did research. That's one place I'm looking at for next year as well.
So you've always had the travel bug.
Yes. Yeah.
You've always fed it
Yes.
over your life.
Yes. Yeah.
So what was the very first thing that you did where you were like, oh my God, I love to travel. This is it for me. I'm going to do this my entire life.
Interesting. I think I went to Japan and Hong Kong probably in my very early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
if not even that. And I went with my mother and some friends. And I think it was probably, I can't believe it, but I think it was probably like $500.
No.
Oh, it was like ridiculous. And then probably the 5 weeks I spent in Europe by myself, just knowing that I could do that
Yes.
and not,
It is a confidence builder, isn't it? When you're
It is.
on your own
It
and you
is.
can do these things
Yeah.
on your own. And
But I will also say that as you get older, I also do believe that you get a little bit more anxious about things than when I was in my 20s. So I think you just put a little more planning into it. And when I was in my 20s, I'd fly by the seat of my pants. I'd go to a train station, look at the list, and
Right.
decide where I wanted to go. I had no itinerary. Now I have lots
Find
of
the big
itineraries.
eye. Yeah, I was like, find the big eye
Yeah.
at the train station and figure out what you're going to do.
But could that be a function of the fact that we didn't have a phone that you could like look up where you wanted to go?
Probably.
And it was, okay, there's the list on the train platform.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there
Meeny,
because
meeny,
I don't
miny,
know where
moe.
else to go.
That, and I think I had one of those thick
Folders.
folders,
Oh, yeah,
travel
folders.
book or whatever it was, and I'd be like looking up for hotels and inns and any place I could stay. And so, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, now it's so much easier now to look on your phone and get someplace, and even transit. I mean, these are things that I still do, and like you're in Paris, and obviously walking. Like the transit ability on your phone. I mean, sometimes you don't think about all of those things that are accessible to you. There are a few other handy apps that I use on my phone. One is called Translate, and it allows you to speak and hear, like translate from English to French, French to English, whatever languages you want. But it also gives you the ability to take a picture of a menu or a plaque, and it reads you instantly what that is and how it translates. The other thing I use a lot is TripAdvisor's forum. So sometimes I'll do that either prior to leaving on a trip, but even when I'm on a trip, it's a forum of people who love to travel, and they have questions and they answer each other's, like a community, answer each other's questions, and so you can post anything you want.
You can kind of do that on the fly then.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
yes.
really cool.
So those are two helpful things that I use.
Those are great tips. The Translate thing, I have used that. I've used it in the States in an Asian market. There's a crate of something, I don't know what it is, and I aim the phone right at the Chinese characters, and it tells me what it is.
Yeah, that's great. I've never tried it locally, but I will now.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
a great app. This has been really amazing. All these tips that you've been giving us and all the information that we've been sharing today. We really have enjoyed hearing about how to feed the travel bug. How about you, Joe?
It's been great. I'm going to travel.
I feel inspired. Thank you, Nadine.
Well, thank you for
inspired us.
asking me. That was
Yeah,
really fun.
it's great having you, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I think that wraps up another episode of the 60 Plus podcast. What do you think, Janet?
I think it's a wrap.
All right. Until next time, I'm Joe.
I'm Janet. Bye.